Miss Scarlet in the bedroom with a candlestick. No, that's not right. Okay, it was the butler. No, that was only once. Hmm. So, who done it? Well, everybody likes a good mystery. In 1891, she was born the third of three children in England to a wealthy upper middle class family. She was largely homeschooled and loved reading. She never went to university, but as was proper for girls of her station at the time, she played golf, tennis, croquet, and was decent at riding a horse. Public education or no, she said that her childhood was very happy. That was probably due in no small part to the fact that she didn't like hanging out with kids her own age. She preferred her pets and the friends that she brought to life. Yeah, the pets were real. The friends were invisible to everyone else. But imaginary does not necessarily mean non-existent. Stick with me, I'll get to why. So mostly avoided her peers. But there was one of her favorite memories, when she starred in a theatrical production of Gilbert and Sullivan's Yeoman of the Guard. She got to be the hero, Colonel Fairfax. Not exactly Colonel Mustard, but still pretty interesting. Turns out she was also kind of a hot potato. Allegedly, she got 9 proposals and was engaged twice. Hey, if you got it. In 1912, she finally accepted a third proposal. It was a boy called Archie. Shortly after their engagement, he was sent to war. The First World War. She volunteered as a nurse in a field hospital. Then she went ahead and got certified, transferred to a dispensary, and became the assistant to a pharmacist. There she learned the ins and outs of different chemicals, like poison. She and Archie were finally married when he was on leave in 1914, and they had one child. After the war, he came home, of course. Alas, poor Archie was not wealthy. He couldn't give her the life of luxury that her family had, but she loved him dearly and treasured their marriage. So in 1916, she grabbed her imagination, a pen and paper, and began her legacy, which was rejected 6 times consecutively, until 1920, when she got a book deal. That first novel brought to life one of her most iconic characters, a guy with the first name of Henry. Okay, just as a quick aside here. He may have been her initial claim to fame, but she said that eventually it bored the shit out of her to write him. I mean, yeah, he was a dude. Fuck you want. Anyway, clearly she wanted more, because one of her other iconic characters, surnamed Marple, was a, quote, unassuming, small town, little old lady snoop. Basically your nosy neighbor getting at all your shit, then finding all the skeletons in your closet. Anyway, so she and Archie had adventures, like going to Hawaii, where she became one of the first British people to try surfing. She was already a bodyboarder, so she figured she'd try it standing up. When they were on a trip in Australia doing the water stuff, she ditched her, quote, silky bathing outfit for an equally fashionable wool bathing dress. Emerald green, possibly purchased from a mister. In 1926, however, her life came crashing down. Archie told her he was leaving her for another woman. She didn't see it coming. She loved him. She loved their marriage. She loved their life together. She suffered another great loss that same year when her mother passed away. She was so overcome with grief and loss that for 11 days, nobody could find her. Oh, there was a note, and she said she was going to travel to Yorkshire, also in England. But the next morning, her car was found near the edge of a quarry, miles from her home. So ensued a nationwide search for the woman who had captured the nation's imagination. She was eventually found in a hotel, checked in under her husband's mistress's name. After that, whenever anyone asked her about what had happened, she had amnesia. She never spoke about it publicly. She was private about everything, not just that, for her entire life. So anyway, she was heading into the 1930s, divorced. As fate would have it, she made a visit to an archaeological dig site near Baghdad. And there she met a man nearly 14 years younger than she was, called Max. In case you didn't guess, he was an archaeologist, though his surname was not Plum and he wasn't a professor. Still, they got hitched. I should probably mention that during this entire time, she never stopped writing, publishing, or selling books. She adored Max and their life together. She traveled with him frequently on his archaeological digs. There she found inspiration for her novels. You know, new mysteries, new crimes. Apparently, she loved chocolate truffles. Like, loved. To the point that when she and Max were in Arabia on a dig, she special ordered them and had them brought in. Ooh, I can't forget to mention that whole writing thing. Yeah, so she was so good at writing villains that London's MI5 intelligence agency investigated her. It was World War II, and one of her books got a little too close to the truth. They thought she had somebody on the inside. Except she didn't. She was just really great at writing. In her later years, she lived at Winterbrook, writing and tending her garden. She and Max employed a small staff, usually including a live-in housekeeper who was also a cook. I think I read that her name was Mrs. White. I think. She passed away in 1976 from natural causes. Probably one of the richest women ever. But no one knows how rich, and they probably never will. Her estate guards that information like it's Fort Knox. In 1946, she had said she most disliked crowds, loud noise, cinema, alcohol, and smoking. But she loved the sun and the sea and flowers, traveling and strange foods, sports, concerts, theaters, pianos, and doing embroidery. She also loved working in her garden, well, and avoiding reporters at all costs. She was so good at keeping her private life under wraps. The public considered her dowdy and boring. She liked it that way. She didn't need to dress up and strut around like a peacock. No, her work spoke for itself. I mean, she was awarded honorary degrees from universities. In 1955, she became the first recipient of the Mystery Writers of America's Grand Master Award. That same year, an Edgar Award for Best Play. All right, I didn't say that. She also wrote one of the longest-running plays in history. It's called The Mousetrap. She was made a Dame of the British Empire, and as recently as 2013, was voted the best crime writer ever. Some sources said she was a feminist. Others said she was very much anti-feminism. Could be either. But her books give us a clue. Okay, I'm me, and I can't leave out the bad shit. And if you come at me with, she was a product of her time, no, just no. Today, many of her books are being re-edited to remove the racist parts. Yeah, that was prevalent then, like it isn't now. That does not mean you have to buy into it just because it surrounds you. Progress would never happen if we all just remained products of our time. Okay, stepping off of that soapbox for a minute. Now remember at the beginning I said that imaginary does not necessarily mean non-existent. Well, I can prove it. In 1975, her character, Harry, last name Poirot, it's French maybe, passed away in the final of the stories about him. And the New York Times wrote his obituary, the first ever written for a fictional character. Today, her works continue to inspire, entertain, and remind us that men are just as likely to be victims, and women are equally likely to be the villain. There's that little bit of feminism for you. But since women are consistently underestimated, we probably get away with it more. Just saying. So, did you figure out who it was from the clues I've been giving you? No? Okay, first off, let's talk about how her work inspired one of the best-selling board games of all time. That little game is called Clue. The classic characters include Miss Scarlet, Colonel Mustard, Mrs. White, Mr. Green, Mrs. Peacock, and Professor Plum. And if you bothered to pay attention, you heard me mention each one of them at some point in this video. Still don't know who done it? Okay then, let's open up the envelope from the center of the board and reveal that the responsible party is a cultural icon who didn't care what people thought about her, as long as her books were selling. And sell they did, and do. For 55 years, she wrote almost nonstop, right up until the end of her life. 86 volumes. She sold more than 1 billion copies and counting. Her works have been reprinted in dozens of languages, making her the best-selling woman author of all time. Now, granted, some of those volumes were written under pseudonyms. That means false names, kids. But the name under which she wrote most often, and the name that you've probably heard, Agatha Christie.